Actually, let's move this slightly. Move this over. Oh, that's kind of trippy. Okay, there we go. Hey, White! Oh, we need to fix this. We're not playing Guilty Gear. Or are we? No, this probably isn't Guilty Gear. Pink Hour! And... first play! Pink, pink. Or something. It's like the best I can think of. I was going to think up something more clever, but Nintendo Direct happened, and now we're here. This is the world we live in. Okay. Oh man, do I have a lot to talk about tonight? Holy crap. Just 1 second. Gotta try and get my windows. I know, right? I know, that's exactly what it is. I feel like this is more so though, because the thing is like it feels like there's even less room for Cloud to be a Smash character than what Sonic was, so it's kind of even different on that level. Now, I'll get into this once I get started. So yeah. Welcome to Code Channel, I'm Code, and we're gonna be playing Pink Hour, and talking about Nintendo Direct, probably. Anyway, so as I was gonna say, the thing is like, with Cloud, not only is it something where Nintendo and Square were not, like, they were kind of in an okay position for a while, but it seemed like such an unlikely thing, I guess is what it kind of comes down to. Actually, 2 seconds. I know, we'll probably get started playing the game. I'm just gonna do a little chat first. Since we're going to probably be... So many people are mad! Oh my god, the thing that gets me is how many people are just like angry about it. It's like, wow. Really, people? Like, I don't know, maybe I've just like mellowed and I don't care. But it's one of those things that it's like, you know, there's characters I don't care about. I didn't care about Shulk being in Smash Brothers, but it didn't make me angry. Yeah. Oh man, the internet, Steve. Nobody likes seeing Cloud. Seeing Cloud as a character. I shouldn't say nobody. People liked it, but clearly there was a lot of people also angry about it. But no, what I was gonna say though was there's even less room for Cloud to be a Smash character, I think, than something like Sonic, because Sonic was kind of it kind of came out in that time when Nintendo and Sega were kind of really reconnecting in a real, like, strong way, so it kind of made sense. Cloud feels a little bit left field, but it's something, if you were going to pick a character from Square, and clearly what they're doing now is they're kind of going, I think, to different companies, and different companies are probably coming to them, and there's a lot more communication. If you were going to pick a character from Square, I mean, there's a lot of characters to pick from, obviously. But I think the problem is if you picked any of them, the very, very next... Yeah, they are much closer now, exactly, Son. If you're going to pick any Square character that wasn't Cloud, the very first thing that would be out of anyone's mouth is, when's Cloud? So, you know, it's one of those things that... Ryu is kind of left field too, honestly. And... it's one of those things, Ryu definitely makes sense. I feel like there's less competition for him and also Mega Man kind of broke the ice, so Ryu kind of works out. I still think it was sort of like left field, but Nintendo's in this really interesting position right now, and this was said earlier on Twitter by somebody, but it really begs the point. Nintendo's in this position where they're not in direct competition between Sony or Microsoft, so oh yeah, Cloud's way less expected than Ryu. Like I said, Mega Man kind of broke the ice for Ryu, I think, because Nintendo and Capcom have been very close. Nintendo's doing all the Monster Hunter game, you know, they're localizing all the Monster Hunter games. I shouldn't say localizing, but Nintendo and Capcom are working together with Monster Hunter, so, you know, it's one of those things that Capcom's very close because it's like their biggest franchise. As far as what I was saying, though, is because Nintendo's not in direct competition between Microsoft or Sony, they're in this position where you get something like Street Fighter V coming out, and Nintendo's in this weird position where it's like, oh, I mean, sure, Street Fighter V's not coming to our system, but we're not really in competition with Sony and Microsoft right now in a direct sense, so it's like, maybe you could help promote Street Fighter V by having a character in Smash in a roundabout way. Nintendo's, I think, owning this position as the secondary system, and this was something that I never thought much about, but you can do very well in the, like, console wars, so to speak, by being the secondary system. Being that system where somebody owns a PlayStation and a Nintendo whatever, Microsoft, Xbox, and a Nintendo whatever. Being in that secondary position is very lucrative. So it's one of those things that it's interesting. It's very interesting. I do think Ryu has more history with Nintendo than a character like Cloud. Cloud's particularly kind of controversial because he is literally the game that is rooted between the divide PC and Nintendo. Exactly, Sam. So it's one of those things that Cloud's rooted in a game that was literally the divide between Nintendo and Square. So it's very interesting pick, but I do feel like it's the most obvious pick. A lot of people wanted Cloud. A lot of people really wanted Cloud in Smash Brothers. So it's definitely something that was obvious in that sense. There's obviously a want for it, but also I think the thing is like a lot of people said, well, why didn't they pick a Final Fantasy game that has its history with Nintendo? I think there's two reasons for this. One is the fact that those games are really old. I'm not saying Final Fantasy VII is really old. I've been running the joke that it's like, oh yeah, they had to pick the, you know, new hotness of, you know, Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, where, you know, it's from 1997, new hotness from 1997. But, oh no, the secondary system, if you can carve out your market in a way where you are the alternative system, and see, Wii was especially good like that, because even though we, so to speak, won the console war, it wasn't the system that had the most, like, groundbreaking games on it. It was because it was the system that everybody owned besides whatever the main system they were playing on. We was in a very good position. We also, of course, had the casual demographics, so there's a lot of things going on there that really benefited the Wii. I'm kind of glad they didn't put Lightning in it either. The reason why, though, I think they picked Cloud is there's far more reason to pick Cloud going forward, because Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's hype towards that. To pick Lightning, what's the next game that Lightning's going to be in? There isn't one, so there's not really a reason to pick Lightning, and that's the reason why a lot of NES games, I think, fall through, because there's not really a reason to pick those games, because it's not like they have a new one coming up, unfortunately. And see, that's exactly it, guys. You can not know anything about Final Fantasy and still know who Cloud is. A lot of Final Fantasy characters don't do that. Lightning is very, like, PR heavy from Square, but a lot of people still don't know Lightning. People at least know of Cloud. You could say characters like Chocobo or Moogle or not even Tomberry, Cactar. You could say one of like their more mascot-esque characters, but I think when it comes down to it, those characters, they're in a lot of Final Fantasy games, but I think they lend themselves far better to costume pieces for me characters than what... If they did it the other way around, I think far more people would be upset. If you were to think of it as, oh, they put Chocobo in the game, and Cloud is a costume, like, the internet would be furious. Sakurai would be, you know, buried. It's something that I think that those characters are known, but they don't have the solidness of Cloud in this respect. Cloud basically is a mascot for the Final Fantasy series in a roundabout way. So that's kind of my stance on where Cloud is. Now here's the interesting thing, and I know I'm like, this is running on a while here about Pink Hour, or poor Pink Hour having to sit here and wait, but it should be that would be adorable white. What was I gonna say? Shoot, I just lost it. Also, I think another part of it, even though it's not a real big promotion, also the fact that Final Fantasy Explorers is coming out in January, Cloud being in Smash Brothers gives people time to say, oh, hey, there's a Final Fantasy game coming out on 3DS, which looks pretty cool. Maybe we'll, you know, it'll bring attention to it, and you can play as Cloud in it, coincidentally. And oddly enough, of course, you can't really play as a Chocobo in it, so... But what I was going to say, the interesting thing that has come up is Cloud a ballot character? And I don't think he is. And I have two reasons for this. One is the ballot votes ended in October. They said the results for the ballots are going to be in December. Like, this is like six weeks to put Cloud together after winning the vote. They could have started before the vote was over, but that's a little slippery. Personally, I don't think Cloud was a voted-in character. I think this has been more of like Ryu, where it's been Nintendo and Square in talks doing a cross-promotion. And people are saying, oh, but there's 3 character slots left. And don't get me wrong, I think Cloud probably was voted for a lot in the ballot. I think as far as it goes, though, I think it's too short of a time between the ballot and this announcement for Cloud to have been an idea devised from the ballot. What I think is going to happen, people are saying, oh, but there's only 3 character slots left. Well, the thing is they can add more character slots in a patch. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see Cloud. Of course, Cloud was announced. Then we're going to see 2 returning characters. This is going to be just like Ryu, Lucas, and Roy. We're going to see 1 new character and 2 returning characters. That's going to fill those 3 slots. In the update that brings those characters, we are probably going to see 3 more slots for the ballot characters coming up. That's probably how it's going to fall out, and, you know, that's probably what's going to happen. I have a feeling, I don't know if this is just a running thing, but I think Wolf is pretty likely in the next update. So to say that there's only 3 slots left, I don't think that's an actual... I think that's kind of short-sighted, I guess. When it comes down to it, there's going to be more slots. There's not enough room with Cloud and the ballot winners. Fallout 4 confirmed. My god. So anyways, that was an interesting thing. It was a pretty good Nintendo Direct. I don't think they actually showed that much new stuff. And, I think that's kind of... This is a good example of how to pace your Nintendo Direct. Like, how to pace your PR correctly. So even if you don't have that much stuff to show, you can make it feel like a lot just through correct pacing. I feel so much more coherent when I'm not playing a game while streaming. What is it? So it's an interesting thing. It's a really interesting thing. I think this was a pretty good Nintendo Direct, though, overall. Lots of good stuff coming up. Well, maybe not a lot of stuff, but there's some stuff coming up. So, it was kind of light on the Wii U, honestly, but everybody knew that was going to be like that. Fair amount on the 3DS, not a whole lot new, but I think honestly the biggest thing out of it was people were just looking for a Splatoon announcement and a Smash announcement. They got one of each. People are mostly satisfied. Yeah, so this is Pink Hour. It is cute. Pew pew pew. But yeah, so that's kind of how the Nintendo Direct. I think how Cloud is going to work out. Also, might I add, the Midgar stage that is going to be in the game. Superb. It looks excellent. I am really excited for it. In theory, everything I saw, it looks fairly tournament legal. It looks pretty tournament legal when it comes down to it, because it's all just stage effects. There is one thing I noticed about that, which it doesn't irk me, but I understand why they did it. But it's like a small mistake they had in the stage, which caught my attention immediately. Was they used the incorrect Ifrit. They used the incorrect Ifrit. They used Ifrit's wolf version from Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy X. They do look slightly different in those games, but they went with that direction for Ifrit. I understand why they would, because it's a more easy to identify look for him. Final Fantasy VII, of course, had more of an ogre-looking Ifrit. He looks actually a lot more like Odin in Final Fantasy VII, which I could see that being confusing for people. Admittedly, I prefer Wolf Ifrit. I think he's cooler looking, so good on them for going with the better design. Yeah, I think they probably will in Final Fantasy VII Remake too. I think the thing is 8 kind of, if 8 did anything, it gave us some really solid interpretations of what the summons look like. Because the thing is before that, they always kind of varied from game to game. Quite a bit, actually. Oh man, the first Cloud amiibo is gonna be a friggin' fight. I want one. I really want one. So that's gonna be a thing. See, 8 summons were really good. The GFs, I actually really like the designs in the GFs. They were really, really cool. I didn't like much else about 8. Not to be a jerk, but what is it? Yes, I agree, Sam. There was characters I liked in 8, but I actually felt like Squall brought the game down a bit. Squall was like having a character that was literally unexcited about the game he was in. Like, there's something about Squall which just sucks the energy out of a person. Yeah, Cloud Amiibo's gonna be a mad rush. Well, maybe. There is this running thing with Final Fantasy VII, which I do think it's a lot less big than what it was 10 years ago, which is understandable, but because most kids nowadays didn't grow up with Final Fantasy VII or play it at some span. I didn't grow up with it per se. Well, I sort of did. But most kids nowadays who game grew up like after the PS1 era, which is crazy to think about. But that's the thing, Squall by the end of it does change over the course of the game a bit. I don't think it's maybe as much as... I don't think it's a character that is one of the better written Final Fantasy characters. He does change a bit by the end of the game, but man, it is like really grueling early on because he's so disinterested in everything. Yeah. Honestly, the thing I find most interesting about Final Fantasy VIII is the world itself. It's a really interesting world. The more you look into it, it's like, oh, there's like really weird, dark things going on. Hey, High Roller. Yeah, we're talking Final Fantasy games right now, oddly enough. Well, enjoying the music of Pink Hour. Final Fantasy VIII, I think the world itself was kind of interesting. There was characters I liked. There was characters I liked in Final Fantasy VIII, but it's one of those things that I feel like it's there's enough there that it just, yeah. I think from from a critical standpoint, I think Final Fantasy VI is the best Final Fantasy game. Just my personal feelings and taking some of my I guess personal feelings out of it. I love 7. I love Final Fantasy 7. I really like Final Fantasy 4. Both good Final Fantasy games. 7 does have issues. 7 has big issues with its pacing, particularly towards the end of the game. A lot of unclosed details, and if you want to bring in the other games, which I generally don't like doing, the story gets really, really, there's layers to it, but it's Crisis Core, not good. Or, oh my god, what am I saying? Crisis Core was amazing. It was, oh shit, what was it called? What was the movie called? Children, oh god, I can't remember the name of the movie. It's eluding me at the moment. Advent Children. Advent Children, not good. Dirge of Cerberus, it's not great. Crisis Core, actually, I felt, did the most to actually... Hey. Crisis Core is extremely good. Extremely good. What is it? Crisis Core actually does the most to repair Final Fantasy VII's issues. If you play Final Fantasy VII after Crisis Core, I think it will make the most sense rather than just playing Final Fantasy VII. Dirge of Cerberus has moments. I won't write Dirge of Cerberus completely off. I do think it's mechanically clunky. Dirge of Cerberus was mechanically clunky, but I actually like the fact they took Vincent and focused on him, because he is an extremely interesting character if you play Final Fantasy VII. He has an extremely good backstory. It ties into literally everything that causes movement in the plot. He kind of... There's a layer to it there that he's very important to. 9. Okay, if we're going to talk Final Fantasy 9, 9 is extremely dark. 9 is extremely dark. 9... I didn't like 9 when I originally played it, but it's mellowed with me after years of just digesting what I played. 9 is interesting because I think it's very... You might not get it at the time when you're playing the game, but that game is incredibly somber, which is unusual for a game. The whole Black Mage subplot is very, very dark, and it actually, even though, like, spoiler alert, it's not exactly finished, you have no end resolution, I actually think it's better that way, because it actually, there is no resolution for something like that. There is an emptiness to it, and it's very interesting. And the game itself is not, yeah, like, when the game actually closes up, like, it, on, like, the surface level, it's like, oh, it's okay, but the underlying qualities of what's happened, it's like, oh, things aren't going to be great in the long term. Yeah, it does. It actually does. But 8 and 9, I don't think lend themselves well to a character they could have picked for Smash, that's for sure. 10, 10 actually I feel like has the most maybe potential after 7, maybe. 10 was kind of well known, but it also sort of isn't. If Titas had made the cut, it would have been very, very weird. It would have made a lot of people angry. It's like I said earlier. You could say that it should have been a different character, but the first thing out of everyone's mouth would have been, wins Cloud. So, that's your answer. Cloud was the obvious choice. I would actually just love to see more villains in Smash. I think villains are an underexplored selection in Smash. The problem is Zidane, he isn't that well known, I think, in the overall spectrum of Final Fantasy games. Vivi's strange, because Vivi plays on the motif that he's a black mage, and you can look at almost any older Final Fantasy game and recognize him as that character. He almost falls under the realm of being a mascot character, but Vivi, as a character, as Vivi himself, very interesting plot in Final Fantasy IX, as I said, but I don't think he's a good pick for Smash. Yes, exactly, High Roller, exactly. It's very strange that he's as iconic as he is, but I think it is because he plays so strongly into the older Final Fantasy's motifs and the look of the character when it comes down to it. As far as Smash Brothers and villains, I would love to see more villains in Smash Brothers. I think King K. Rool would be great to see. Actually, I really do feel like if they add another Donkey Kong character, they should be adding Dixie. Dixie was an obvious choice, and I actually felt like it was a really strong miss in the starting lineup for Smash 4. Dixie would have been a great character. I feel like there's two groups of characters which I feel need the most attention in Smash Brothers. One was villains and one was female characters. Female characters have picked up. They've done better. That's kind of why and I think Nintendo is aware of that, and they've made more efforts to add more female characters to the game. But I do think it's something that they still can... There's room to do more, and characters like Dixie would be nice. Dixie's a very... extremely nice character, so... villains, I feel like there's so much room to add villains to Smash Brothers. Villains are excellent characters. And they really play into the idea of, a fighting game. I feel like having villains in a fighting game is important. Having a bunch of characters that are all good does not make a good cast. As far as more sword users, I will say there's too many sword users in Smash. Cloud adding to the pool is not helpful, but I will cut it slack because I never thought in my wildest dreams that Cloud would make the cut for Smash Brothers. So, whatever. Just, draw the line now. Honestly, I'm really surprised, and a lot of people were really angry about the fact that Isaac didn't make the cut for Smash. Maybe he will down the road. Maybe he'll win a place in the character vote. Who knows? I personally didn't like Golden Sun. Not my series. I found it exceptionally mediocre, which is probably extremely hurtful for anyone who likes Golden Sun, but my biggest issues, I think, with Golden Sun is I was spoiled with JRPGs because I grew up through Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI. Golden Sun is, in the post-Golden era of JRPGs, where I think it was probably better than what I gave it credit for, but it's still a huge step down from that Golden era. And see, that was an interesting one too, is Geno. And this makes me think, I hear Lost Age does a lot to improve Golden Sun, so, I can't say a whole lot on Golden Sun, just that my personal experience with it wasn't great. Oh no, Binding of Isaac, no. Binding of Isaac would never make the cut. Sorry, but it's true. Now, that's the interesting part with Geno, is that this does make you think about the fact that Nintendo might be in talks with Square a bit more than just Cloud being in it. Because oftentimes things like this are processes of wheeling and dealing. It could simply have been that Square was like, okay, if you want Geno, we will cut you the rights, but only if you put Cloud in the game too. And that's a very likely scenario of what could have happened. So it's something that Geno has. This is a big tip off to potentially Geno being a character in the game, which is interesting. As far as Smithy or Booster, maybe. Geno is a little bit more forefront, I think. Booster's a great character, and Smithy is a very interesting villain and very cool. I know, tinfoil hat. No, it's a very interesting notion though. Geno could have more room than what we're giving him credit for. It would be nice too, because it would actually be a representative from the Mario RPG series. Admittedly, I was a little bit surprised when Paper Mario didn't make it as a playable character, because it felt like, yeah, Smithy's too stationary to fight in Smash, I do agree. I think he's an interesting character, but I don't think he's that viable as, like, a character in Smash. Plus, I mean, like, you're not gonna see Smithy before something like King K. Rool. It's just, like, King K. Rool is so much more visible, so much more of a visible character. The thing with Smithy is you don't even know what he looks like until you beat the game. I think for a good villain, you need to... Like, for a good villain pick, you need a character that's very visible. Well, the thing with Ryu is I think it's an interesting one, because I think it's a byproduct of talk between Nintendo and Capcom, just because they've been fairly close. It could be... You could say that maybe Ryu was somehow maybe factored in via their wheeling and dealings with Monster Hunter 4. Something to that degree. Because, I mean, there was a lot of cross promotions between Nintendo and Capcom in Monster Hunter 4. Yeah, and I expect the same thing, Skaz. It's something that I do think, I think it has a lot to do with upcoming Square titles for North America is what I think the big push. Also, the fact that Square wants to actively promote Final Fantasy VII, because of course the big Final Fantasy VII remake is going to be coming out in the next year or two. Probably the next 2 years. You know, it's a little bit ahead of the game, maybe, but it's still getting people thinking about Cloud. Because the thing is the last thing to actively promote Cloud, or like Final Fantasy VII in general, would have been Crisis Core. And Crisis Core wasn't a big game. Like, it was on the PSP, and it was a prequel to a game that at that time was already like 10 years old. So it's something that I love. Crisis Core. Crisis Core was extremely good. It was one of the best JRPGs I've played in years. It was superb. It still has mechanical issues, which makes it drag a bit, but I think it was an excellent game overall. Oh my god, we've extended the Pink Hour stream by 30 minutes just talking about Nintendo Direct and Final Fantasy games. Now that would be interesting, but that's a hard call, because that was also, like, that was Sony's big thing, I think, the fact that they announced Final Fantasy VII sounds likely. I don't know, I think Sony probably has their fingers in Final Fantasy VII Remake. They announced it at the show floor on E3, it wasn't Square announcing it, and that says a lot. That says probably there's Sony money tangled into that. I'm not saying that there won't be things on other systems like Cloud being in Smash to kind of help add padding. Nintendo would do anything, but the thing is if the contracts are signed, the contracts are signed. I mean, this is why we had a whole bunch of quirky Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles games on the GameCube, because Sony and Square were in a contract where Nintendo or Square could not put any Final Fantasy games on other systems. They couldn't put any numbered Final Fantasy games on other systems until that contract expired, which I think it expired in... when did it expire? It expired with 12. It expired with 12, I think. But that's why you end up with all these Crystal Chronicles games, because they were the roundabout way to get Final Fantasy games on Nintendo systems. Do I think Nintendo would be smart to, like, throw as much money at trying to get Final Fantasy VII Remake on the NX? Yes, Nintendo would be extremely smart to do that. That would be an excellent move on Nintendo's part. It would give them a strong, like, maybe not a launch game, but it would be near launch to the system. It would give them an extremely strong game out of the gate. The thing is, though, is with the NX, I think there's too many unknowns right now as to what the NX is. If it's going to be a standard console. With the new Nintendo president, I forget his name off the top of my head, but I know he's a much more traditional console-oriented person. He was not a fan of the Wii U. He did not like the direction of the Wii U gamepad. So with him being present, if he has any say, of course, in the console development, which he probably does, obviously, it's probably going to end up being a more traditional system. This will probably be something more in line with yeah, really, we should just do that. This will be our, like, background noise for streaming, just our, I guess, active podcast. Pink Hour has great background music for this, though. It's really good. This is horrible, too, because I know this is not a long game. If the talk about the Nintendo Direct is longer than Pink Hour, I'm going to be upset. Speaking of which, we should probably play some Pink Hour. We can keep talking, but I'll try and focus on Pink Hour a little bit, too. So what Pink Hour is this is Pixel, who's known for making Cave Story. This was his next game after Cave Story. Well, technically Kuro Blaster was, but then he made Pink Hour, which was a prequel to Kuro Blaster. So we're gonna play Pink Hour first. In Pink Hour, you play as this little pink nurse character. She shoots these little bullets. Let's go this way. Nothing is that way. This is cute. Also, if you have not played Cave Story, I highly recommend Cave Story. One of my favorite games of all time. Extremely good game. Maybe they heal. Maybe. Alright, let's go. Let's start Pink Hour.